All right. Before we get going, I know, Jeff, I think you had a couple words you wanted to say before we get going today.
I just want to acknowledge the fullness of life, the joy and the sadness that is in store for us all. And I'm filled with both of them today. And as I was last night, learning of my dear friend's passing, Robin, and the wonderful, joyous feeling of, giving birth to our child here, the giver. And the combination was just quite remarkable. It sort of reminded me of what the giver and the receiver might have felt, holding all those memories. And it was an amazing night. I remember pulling up to the boathouse where we had our party, and I'm sitting there with my wife trying to gather myself, and I look out of the window, and I say, "What? Is that Robin? Is that his ghost? No, it's Radio Man." That's right. And it brought back all of these wonderful feelings of what an amazing time we had together here in New York shooting The Fisher King. And I got out of the car and I embraced Radio Man, looked at his face. And I remember when we were shooting Fisher King, Radio Man, he knows where all the movies are shot, and somehow I don't know how he magically does that, but I remember seeing Radio Man, and we could not believe that Robin's character was there in the flesh, in reality, and there he was. And so we embraced, Radio Man. It felt like it was, I felt Robin's spirit as I'm feeling him now in this room with us. And just before I came down, I'm looking out my window to Central Park, my favorite part about New York, and I'm remembering the last scene of me and Robin out there at 4 o'clock in the morning, naked, And Robin is just wild and free, and he says, "Let the wild pony dance," and he was just, and he's rubbing his butt on the grass like this, and he says, "You know why dogs do this? Because they can!" Ah! He was just so wild, and so I just had to share that with you because that's what's going on so strongly, and how much I miss him, and I'm sure you guys do too. What a gift he was to all of us, and what a gift Lois gave us with her wonderful book, and Phillip down there, putting it up on screen. So that's all I wanted to say, and now let the Wild Rumpus start. Thank you.
Thanks for that wonderful memory, Jeff. I do want to turn to Ms. Lowry because obviously this all begins with you. 21 years ago, this book came. I can't imagine you necessarily thought this day would come. When did it enter your mind that a film might be in the offing, and it was something that you always welcomed with open arms?
As you said, it was 21 years ago that I wrote the book, probably 20 years ago that it was published, and 2 years after that Nikki and Jeff came to me. That's a lie. They didn't come to me personally. Their people came to me to suggest that we turn it into a movie. Seemed as if it would be easy at the time. It wasn't, but maybe good things never come easily. So it was a very long haul, as you know. 18 years after that date, finally, the movie is on the screen. And most of the people who are here with us today would not have been part of it 18 years ago. So good things come to those who wait.
Jeff, you act as not only star, but of course producer of this project. As we know, your association with it, as Lois said, goes way back. Mm-hmm. It's a very personal connection for you too, I know, because initially you had intended to direct this yourself for your dad.
Yeah,
can you talk a little bit about why this resonated with you on such a personal level and a little bit of the history of that?
Yeah, well, it goes back 18 years, and I wanted to direct my father in something, and I wanted it to be something that my kids could see. They were all young; they're all in their 30s now, and so I got a catalog of children's books, and I'm looking at the different covers, and I see this photograph of an old grizzled guy on there, and I said, "Oh, my dad could play that part." And I noticed the Newbery Award stamp on there, and I said, "Oh, this looks like it might be good." And I read it, and of course it knocks me out as a kid's book, but as an adult, I'm just loving the story and the themes in it, and I'm very excited about it. And then I bring it in to tell my wife about it, and the kids say, "Oh, we know that book. We were taught that book in school." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Oh, yeah, there's a lesson plan for it." I said, "You're kidding me." My excitement grows. And then I find out it's also on the list of banned books. And I even get more excited, because those are the kind of movies I like to make, a little edgy and a little danger. And I said, "Oh, this is going to be a cinch to get made, you know. Over 10 million copies sold in 21 countries. You know, the money guys are going to go crazy over this." That did not prove to be true. The controversy, being both on the banned books and selling so many copies and being popular in school, that it freaked them out. And also, when we finally got a script together, it was very challenging to put this world that Lois had created in the book up on the screen, because so much of it was inter-dialogue this guy was having with himself, Jonas. And Bob Weide here on the end of the table, he was our first writer, and we spent a week or so up at my place, jamming on the story, and it was challenging, but we dug it, we took it around, and the guys, the financiers, they were just shy, they were too shy about it. And so it took this long, and I'm really so pleased that it did take this long, because this is the right team. We've got the right director. Casting is everything. Not only the actors, but the crew, and certainly our director and our director of photography, Ross Emery, who was so great. Phillip Noyce was like the key bit of casting that we scored. But, if it was made earlier, Odeya wasn't born, so we would not have had, Odeya with us, and just the whole team wouldn't have been there. So I'm glad, it took, the gestation period was that long, and boom, here we are.
I'm just glad that it didn't take any longer, because I'm 77 years old.
Yeah.
I wanted to be still around when it was
There you go.
I do want to talk about this astonishing cast that's assembled here today, but a little bit on the process again, behind the scenes of the writing. As you mentioned, Bob, you wrote the initial screenplay way back when. Was it a challenging book to crack in the initial going? I mean, there's obviously a fertile ground there for a screenwriter, but what were the unique challenges at that point?
It was very challenging. People have asked me if I felt the pressure of how beloved the book is and how many millions of readers it has. And of course, at the time I wrote it, my drafts, the book was only a couple of years old and did have a following and had won the Newbery Award, but I wasn't feeling the pressure of millions of writers as Michael did by the time he got to it. But I loved the book, and a book is not a movie. Changes had to be made and things had to be added and revised, but all of that was done with the notion of being true to the spirit of the book. And Lois and I were in touch during that time via email. Actually, email was in its early days at the time. That's how far back this goes. And phone calls, and I would run things by her, and she was very non-territorial and not precious about her words, and said, "Yeah, change what you need to change, and that all sounds good." And as Jeff said, a lot of the book is sort of internalized. It's Jonas's thoughts and reactions to what's going on, and how do you put it up on screen. And the other big challenge is, without giving anything away here, I think, is in the book, once Jonas flees the community, the book stays with him on his journey and never goes back to the community to see how his exodus has affected people in the community. And that was sort of my first thought, was we've got to see how his leaving affects the community. So that basically meant creating a new storyline, which brought about other changes, and it all felt quite organic to me, and then years later was honed and perfected by Michael. One thing I've said about our two scripts, our drafts, is that they were 17 years apart, and Michael and I hadn't met until last week. And which, by the way, I suggest to everybody who collaborates, that's the way to do it, because no arguing and no fighting, you know. But when I read Michael's finished script, it really felt like a true collaboration, as though we had sat down side by side and hammered it out together. So I was very pleased when I read his changes, and yeah, I thought it was very challenging, but we took a shot at it.
Michael and Phillip, and perhaps Nikki, if you want to weigh on this as well. I mean, the look of the film is gorgeous, and I'm sure the decision to portray some of it, much of it in muted colors, black and white even, is a big one for any studio film. Was that something that you all arrived at collaboratively together? Was there any discussion of going another way?
No, none. We just followed Jonas's, well, everyone's limited perception, and Jonas's gathering perception of color and the world around him, and structured the color scheme around that. Of course, you don't have to see black and white when you're reading Lois's words. You can imagine you're watching, you know, events in color. But we had to make some pretty hard decisions, and we laid out the film from first frame to last, and then shot it that way, and that's how you see it in the cinema.
Did to our young actors, younger actors, we're all young here, younger actors here today. Did any of you encounter this book prior to coming to the material?
Sadly, no.
None of us?
None of us did.
Did you guys read it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in school.
So what struck you?
There you go. We've got one reader.
There you go. What struck you about it, Taylor?
Huh?
What struck you about it the first time you encountered
When
it?
I read the book, it was one of those things that really changed my perspective on a lot of things. I think when I read it, I was in probably 5th grade, and I didn't do a lot of thinking about the distant future as far as our society goes, you know, at that point in my life. And this really kind of switched that up for me, and it really kind of blew my mind in a way that stuck with me. And when I got this script, I just immediately thought, I'm going to say yes to this. I really hope it's a good adaptation. I hope it's a good portrayal of this, because if it's anything like the effect the book had on me, then I'm going to do this.
For you, Ms. Streep, I'm wondering what, in an extraordinarily varied career, this is new material. This is a different part than we've ever seen you portray, which obviously I guess is the goal of any actor. What boxes did this check when this script came in and this material came your way that said, I need to do this, this makes sense for me right now?
Well, I like to be boss. So so that was a good thing. I'd always wanted to work with this gentleman my entire career. Never got the chance. Somehow he eluded me. And so that was a big part of the draw. And also, I'm a big admirer of Phillip's films. I think he's a pure filmmaker with great taste. And I knew to bring this to life, especially the colorless parts of it, it would take a great artist. So I was really happy to be pulled in.
Did your kids read the book?
Yeah. Mine did, yeah. They were required, they had a list of required reading over the summer, and it's always, to get them to do it. And that's one of my parenting methods. No, but that one was put in front of them, and they devoured it. The two younger ones, so yeah.
The perils of a large panel is if I ask each of you a question, you guys won't have any time. So I'm going to open this up to some questions from you guys and spread the wealth. I think we have 2 microphones that are roving around, perhaps. Is there a mic? No? Yes? I can. Do you want to go to the gentleman right in front of you? Thanks. Yep.
Good morning, my name is Alfonso Diaz, and I am with NTN24, the Latino News Channel, and RCN Networks Colombia. And I have a question for you, Ms. Streep, and it's about the fact that when an actor makes a movie, it's all about the emotions, and it's all about the developing of that intensity of emotions. And here, your character is deprived from them. So how do you build something in which you deliver still with that level of constriction because of who the character is?
Who was that addressed to?
I'm not sure, actually. Who did you want to address that to?
To Meryl Streep, please.
To Ms. Streep?
Oh. Thank you. I love the way you say my name. Well, it's an interesting thing to play people who have suppressed emotion, but I felt that the chief elder didn't take her medication as well on certain days. Do you know what I mean? Like we all skip, probably. Because clearly she had some deep history with the giver, the receiver of wisdom, right? And I think that that was something that intrigued me about this script. But in terms of, I think that's sort of the point of the book. You can't keep things in. You know, you can't suppress the things that make us human, and it's pointless to try.
All right, let's go to the next question. Let's go to the woman right next to you. Thank you.
Hello, this is for Katie Holmes. Did your daughter watch the movie? Did you discuss it with her? And what do you want her to learn from it?
Thank you for asking. She's a little young, but I'm very excited to be a part of this, and I think that so many people who have read the book are going to be so happy with this adaptation.
Katie, a follow-up just in terms of the character. I mean, usually, you know, if a character doesn't have a name, one would think that's a limiting characteristic. You are literally your mother in the film. What's the challenge of portraying a full-bodied character that is, as the journalist earlier mentioned, is, you know, muted, is not able to express herself in the ways that all of us express ourselves day to day? Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of this character for you?
Well, it was challenging, and Phillip was reminding us, like, not to touch each other, which I find to be something that you just do naturally as a mother and, you know, as a human being. That was one of the things. But I just approached it as a mother whose child is leaving the nest. That's what kind of made this character real to me. And then tried to, I mean, it was interesting to play someone that has no emotion, yeah.
For Brenton, Odeya, and Cameron, you guys, I mean, within the first 10, 15 minutes of the film, you have a tall task in that a lot of the rest of the film rides on what you establish in this very core relationship and the journey that you all go on and the fracturing of that relationship as the film progresses. I know you guys shot this in South Africa. Did that sort of lend itself to kind of helping establish a bond that you could portray on screen in those first few key scenes?
Yeah? No, I think so. I think we're like family now. They're like my brothers. And when you are somewhere far away,
Brothers get to punch their sisters, so.
Okay, anyway.
Not in front of the press, please.
Okay,
Okay,
anyway.
sorry. Later, I'm gonna get.
Okay, okay, it's my turn to talk now. Anyway, what I was saying, so I think when you are on location and not everybody has their family there, they do come visit, you become a family. And we had Thanksgiving together on the beach, and we got together on weekends, and we're just being with a movie crew. I think even with the local South Africans, everybody just becomes really close. And I mean, aside from Brenton, everyone's really easy to get along with, so.
response, Brenton, or are you going to just let that go?
I've got nothing, bro. I've got nothing. I've used them all up. I've got none left.
Fair enough. Next question from the group. Let's go to you, Miss.
Hi. So the idea that knowledge is power is such a prevalent idea in this film. And what I was wondering was, for each of you, was there something that when you were around Jonas's age that really that you learned that really affected you and kind of helped you throughout your respective careers?
Well, I thought I learned how to ride a bicycle, but it turns out that might not have been the case. We had these death traps that were built for this movie, these heavy steel. I got my shoelace caught in the chain once. I fell into a bush. I think we have a bunch of outtakes of me being completely incapable and uncoordinated. So I wish I would have properly learned that lesson. Yeah. Emma, how was the bike for you?
I needed somebody to teach me how to ride the bicycle because they're like heavy and it's hard. It's not like bicycles we use.
It's the future, Emma.
They were the ultimate prop bicycles, meaning we made them cheaply. Meaning they fell apart and they were very heavy.
It was the South African version of the futuristic bicycle.
Director always watching his budget. Let's go to, the woman right in front of you, please, on your right.
Hi, I was wondering, in such an emotional role, maybe Katie and Meryl and Jeff could mention what you did maybe as a few of you as a group or personally to kind of decompress a little bit.
We jammed. We did a lot of music, lots with Taylor as well, right? Taylor, Taylor. My scenes with Taylor were mostly at the piano, so we were talking music all the time, and then between scenes we'd break out our gits and pick a little bit. We had great jam sessions with Brenton and Odeya, and Michael Mitnick plays a bad piano.
Michael, that was crazy.
Yeah,
He's so good.
Oh, isn't he? Yeah, wonderful. So that's what we did.
Best man of my life.
Actually, a question for you, Taylor. I mean, obviously, a lot of attention given that this is a significant step for you in the acting world, and I'm sure you've had some opportunities, some offers have come your way. What were you looking for, and what about this one made it the right time and the right project?
Well, like Meryl said, it's unbelievable to even think about having the opportunity to work with Jeff. So I think for me that was just an unbelievable concept that I would get to do sort of this dream scenario where I get to have a very small role that has a pivotal part in the story, but isn't too, jumping into too deep water your first time in a serious, dramatic movie. But I think that the fact that it was all those things put together, the fact that it was a story that stuck with me from my childhood, the fact that it was, written by an author I really respect, the fact that it celebrates all the things that I hold really dear and the things that are most important to me, like our history and our music and our art and our intellect and our memories. I think that really had a great deal to do with why I wanted to be a part of this. I think in a world where right now I'm seeing so many of my fans and these people write to me on Instagram and Twitter and letters saying that they're having such a tough time with life because they can't imagine that we can experience such great pain, such intense loss, such insecurity. And the thing that I just wish I could tell them over and over again is that we live for these fleeting moments of happiness. Happiness is not a constant. It's something that we only experience a glimpse of every once in a while, but it's worth it. And I think that's what they'll take away from this movie.
I guess this is for Phillip and Lois, but also Jeff, Katie, anyone else there. Did you guys ever have a conversation about the science fiction implications of this film? In other words, maybe the backstory that led to this culture, the post-apocalyptic scenario? Was there any conversations about?
Lots.
And could you describe some of those conversations, or at least, maybe a summarization by some of you guys of what you talked about?
We had a lot of discussion about whether, what the future was. We talked to Lois a lot about it. And I think what is important to all of us is that the world was headed in a very bad place. And whether that was ecological, whether it was world war, it's unimportant, actually, to the story. What's important to the story is that we went on a very, very bad path. So we've tried a lot of things. Phillip experimented with a lot of ideas, and we left that to what we think are very smart audiences to try to figure out and have their own interpretation of how we got here.
And imagine, Jeff, you got to take into consideration all these things to get behind the story.
Yeah, I was as Nikki was speaking, I was trying to remember what my scenario was. And I think it went along with Nikki about something terrible happened, or our darker side kind of surfaced, and we put a stop to that by trying to perfect ourselves. And like, this is an example of one of the things that we try to get convenient. How wonderful we have these we have these water bottles. We can drink these whenever we can. What a lousy idea, to have these. They say they're biodegradable often, but they're not. They end up in the ocean. The fish eat them. We eat the fish. It's just not. It's that immediate kind of gratification that's a part of being human beings, and we tend to kind of go that way. That's a part of who we are. And one of the things I like about this movie and the book as well is that it's not really shoving a message down the audience's throat, but hopefully it's provoking them to ask some questions. What are we willing to do for our comfort and our safety, and what is the true cost of that as a human being?
Let's go to the woman on your right.
Congratulations on the movie. This question is for Jeff Bridges. My name is Laura. I'm from W Radio Colombia. And I wanted to ask you, of course, it took so long to bring up this movie, but technically, visually, the movie is pretty beautiful. Tell me about that process, visually, technically, I don't know, special effects. How did you guys work this out?
Well, that's really a question for Phillip, but before I hand it off to Phillip, there's a guy sitting behind you that I want to stand up and be recognized. Neil Koningsberg, please stand, Neil. He's been my partner for 18 years, my partner along with Nikki, getting this film made. I just wanted to acknowledge him, but Phillip, why don't you take that one?
Well, that's a long story. Lois had conceived a certain type of community, which was based on her experiences growing up in military bases all around the world. And one of the places that she lived in was in Tokyo just after the Second World War, where she, like Jonas, would leave the walls of the base and venture out into the madness that was post-war Tokyo. And another story she told us was growing up on Governor's Island, surrounded by water. And when you read the novel, you can see those two influences. I went for holiday in Cape Town, South Africa, and took a shot of my son on top of Table Mountain. And when I was coming home in the plane, I looked at it, and I looked into his eyes as he looked out into those clouds. And I thought, wow, that could be Jonas dreaming about going to the benevolent version of elsewhere. And that became one of the ideas that we explored, which combined two of Lois's ideas or experiences, which we combined to produce this community, one of several communities on top of a mesa and surrounded by a cloud bank that was a barrier to the outside. Going to shoot the film in South Africa was a big decision because it meant that the quality of light, the vegetation, and everything were just a little different than most of the rest of the world down there in South Africa, right at the bottom, down at the Cape. So the world looks a little different. It looks a little familiar, but there's something weird about it. The color schemes, as I've said, were inspired by Lois's wonderfully visual writing, and Ed Verreau was our production designer, and we sort of had a bake-off as to how those houses would look, starting with the military-style houses of the 50s that Lois had imagined, and going right through to mid, 21st century housing, egalitarian housing as it might be built, and we sort of ended up with about 12 different designs, passed them around, including to our writer. She chose the same one as the rest of us, and that ended up being the architectural style. But I could go on and on about the look of the film. A lot of it, of course, is CG, and a lot of the buildings are not built when we actually filmed, but were built much later. Designed by Ed Verreau, our production designer, and then built by our CG team. All in the name of sameness, and all in the name of creating a supposedly egalitarian world free of conflict. So design came from Lois's ideas, both written and ideas that she told us, that she shared with us. I hope that it answers the question.
All right, let's go. I'm going to do a little Phil Donahue. Actually, yeah, maybe right in front of you. Thank you.
Hi, this is a question for Jeff. Because you've been working on this project so long, I wondered if your original vision of how the film would be has evolved over time, or if it stayed pretty true to your original vision.
I came to an interesting crossroads on my adventure with this movie. As I've said before, I was going to direct my father, Lloyd, in the movie. So I had spent these, 18 years, and going through many versions of the script, working with many directors, trying to realize the vision that I had. And just generally, my vision was very close with the book. I wanted to really, the book moved me kind of in a profound way, and I really wanted to do the book justice, and I was very concerned about that. And when Harvey Weinstein and Walden Media said, "Oh, we'll make this movie, but here's how we want to make it," he started to paint it, and I said, "Oh, that's kind of different than I imagined it." And I knew that Harvey was, he's an old school, movie maker. Look at the movies that come out of Harvey's oven, and also Walden. So I figured I'm going to jump in here and just, surf this wave here and see what happens. And then the casting started to happen, and met with Phillip and, these guys. But that was the big bump for me. In the book, they're 12, and for various reasons, they wanted to, some of the team wanted to make the kids older, and that was really a struggle for me to let that one go. But then I met these two, and that started to relax. And then Brenton made a great statement that he said, in the book, it's the ceremony of 12, and he said, well, it could be the ceremony of the 12th grade. Where kids are, 17 or 18, and Brenton at the time looked that age. And I remember going through that period with my 3 girls, and that was the age when they were questioning, what are we going to be, when we grow up, kind of thing. So that kind of worked, and so it was a constant process of letting go. Another kind of a spiritual question that popped up for me while I was working on it was, okay, you're going to let go, Jeff, but when do you, in life, when do you yin and when do you yang, And I'm mainly a yinner. You know, I just kind of go, surf, let it go. And I came to an interesting answer to that question. When do you yin, when do you yang? And if you just take out that when do you, then it becomes you yin and you yang. And I noticed I'm yinning, but every once in a while, right, Philip, I would say, but it's rare, right, Nick? I would yang, but it would just kind of come out, and that's how I served the project, I figure. I didn't want to suppress that yanging, but I wanted to roll and take all of these different changes and different conceptions than mine and let them be almost aspects of my larger self. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is for Michael in the back. Listening to Robert and Lois talk about the foundation that they put together years ago, and you coming in on the project something like 17 years after the fact, what was specifically the things that you brought to the table as a writer, of the drafts?
I first encountered the book in the classroom in Mrs. Brumberg's 5th grade English class in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the book stayed with me. And I guess your question is what I did. What I tried to do was be invisible and hopefully be a successful extension of Lois's voice. There are added beats into the movie, things that are extrapolations of waves that run throughout the book. But what I tried my best to do, and I know everyone did, was to both honor the book and try to make a good movie.
Traditional Michael sense, Michael always undersells things, that's what he does, but Michael really came in with a vision, and to make this a really a movie for all audiences, and a big vision that, Jeff talked about how he started out with this vision of just the book, and Michael really took it and created the film that we see today. Well, I think contemporary, but also just the fun, the action, bringing it all together and being able to take the spirit of Lois's book and create a thoughtful summer blockbuster, which is incredible. Well done, Michael.
Thank you, Nikki.
My question is for Meryl. And I was curious, between this movie and Into the Woods and Ricky and the Flash, it seems to me at least that you're kind of picking roles that you can have the most fun in a way now, because you seem to be having a lot of fun in these roles, and I was curious if that was a purposeful choice by you.
As opposed to punishing myself in the rest of my career. I certainly am having fun with the things that I've been offered. I'm so fortunate, and I haven't quite figured that out, but you don't want to look in the horse's mouth, right? Or
a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, gift horse.
Look a gift horse in the
Thank
mouth.
you, yeah. I knew there was some kind of analogy there that I'm going to find soon, but yeah, I'm really happy to have been included in this amazing group. And in the next things, God knows how they'll turn out, but I have hope.
We all have hope. Congratulations to this amazing group assembled today. Thank you guys for coming out today. The Giver opens August 15th, and thanks for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.